To create positive change for humankind, we first have to make sure we are addressing the right problem. And then, we have to make sure we have the right solution. We should always be ready to question both our understanding of the problem and the correctness of our solution. Dr. James Curran has served as the Dean of the Rollins School for Public Health and Professor of Epidemiology. In 1981, Dr. Curran was chosen to lead a CDC task force on Kaposi sarcoma and opportunistic infections, later to be termed AIDS. He then went on to lead the HIV/AIDS division at CDC. Currently, he is the co-director of the Emory Center for AIDS Research. During his 25 years of leadership at the CDC, he attained the rank of Assistant Surgeon General. Hello, Dr. Curran.
Hello, Zainab.
Tell me about the early work in AIDS.
June 5th, 1981, 5 cases of pneumocystis pneumonia were reported to the CDC, and the cases were all diagnosed in Los Angeles among homosexual men. This was very unusual, an infection which only occurs among people whose immune systems are shot. We formed a task force immediately to begin to look into this to see if the cases were new, if they were increasing, if they were occurring in other parts of the country.
This episode is about avoiding certainty. How did that play out in the early days of the AIDS crisis?
I think the most important thing in epidemics is to gather as much information as you can, interpret it for the public, but also be open to new avenues of inquiry and new avenues of information that come in. As I mentioned, the cause of AIDS was not discovered for 2 years. So very importantly, people were hypothesizing what might cause this. Was it an environmental contaminant? Was it a virus that we knew about? Was it something else? And rather than say we know what it is, what we say is these are the hypotheses, these are the most likely things, and this is what we should do based on the information we have now.
How did demands from different constituents impact the need for certainty?
It's really unique with HIV and with AIDS that ACT UP and the activists in the gay community played such an important role directing the epidemic and calling attention to it. And after all, they did this with great sacrifice because they themselves were dying. So they were fighting for their lives, hand in hand with government and hand in hand with the scientists and physicians.
Can you describe the meeting at Mount Sinai where you presented evidence on a viral origin?
There were many hypotheses for the cause of AIDS. Those of us that came from the STD background, like I did, sexually transmitted diseases, thought that a new viral infection, a sexually transmitted infection, might be the most likely cause. However, people didn't want that to be the cause. There was a lot of denial in the gay community, in the straight community, and other places. But when cases were identified in men with hemophilia A and B, who had a history of receiving blood transfusions from hundreds of thousands of people, it became quite clear that there had to be a new virus that was in the blood supply that also could be sexually transmitted. The meeting at Mount Sinai involved people from around the country who had different hypotheses, and the hypotheses were presented at the plenary session. On behalf of the CDC, Dr. Faggy mentioned the 3 cases in men with hemophilia that had been reported as late as the week previously. At that time, everybody with a hypothesis changed their hypothesis to cofactors because it became so obvious that this was caused by a virus, a new virus yet to be discovered, that could be transmitted in blood through sexual contact and unfortunately also from mothers to their newborns.
We must avoid certainty because it blinds you to the opportunity to improve, to really solve a new problem, or even to solve an old problem in a better and more efficient way.